Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today. We're going to be talking about mastering cash flow, boosting efficiency and maximizing financial success for your clients. And this is sponsored by Milio. My name is Matthew Fulton, and I am joined today by a very special guest, an accounting professional, Melissa Miller-Ferguson. Now, Melissa, I've known you for quite a few years, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our attendees and listeners. Share a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I am Melissa Miller-Ferguson, founder of Bookkeeping for Good, and we're located in Chicago. We're a team of two. Shout out to my amazing employee, Claire, who I think is watching this live with us. We mainly focus on serving churches and nonprofits, but we have a small handful of small service-based for-profit businesses as well. And last year, our firm was recognized as a Woodard Top 50 accounting service practice. So we're really excited about that.
That's really impressive. And for those who are watching online, you're not seeing all the love that she's also getting through the comments here through StreamYard. So congratulations there. Truly, I'm excited to do this episode with you. So Melissa, today's conversation, it's all about kind of cash flow. And, you know, now more than ever, cash flow for a business is extremely important. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about how first, the types of businesses you work with and the importance cash flow is, how important cash flow is for those kind of businesses, please.
Well, with churches and nonprofits, cash flow is super important, of course, for any kind of business. But with our churches and nonprofits, we don't really control the accounts receivable much in the cash flow equation. We rely on donors.
Okay.
And so it's hard.
I guess for you, it's more of your cash flow is kind of your budgets in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's how much money you have to spend and controlling what's available and managing and tracking it the best way possible. Is that a fair way to say it?
Absolutely. And we work really hard with our clients to help them prepare budgets. That's a big part of the service that we provide. In addition to helping them manage their expenses and their accounts payable. We do what we can on the, income side by sending, donor thank you notes promptly and reminding the donors of, their obligations. With churches, there are often pledges involved. So we'll send, quarterly statements to them to remind them where they are in their pledge process, or just to, keep the organization top of mind for them so that, we get that recurring revenue in donations.
So depending on the size of the client that you're working with, in my past, when I've worked with some nonprofits, they quite often will have a volunteer treasurer that's kind of helping out. Have you ever found it difficult for that treasurer person to switch their perspective from, I guess, a for-profit where you're looking at, just trying to make a business as profitable as possible in comparison to working within a budget Is that a common challenge that you run into with new people popping in and out?
We do. We often get a volunteer treasurer who has business experience or finance experience in the for-profit world. And it is sometimes hard for them to switch to a nonprofit way of thinking. They want to manage the church or the nonprofit like as a business. And in some ways, that's, a right way to approach it. You certainly don't want to just, not pay attention to how much things cost and, whether the donations are coming in, but you also need to balance that with the mission of the church or nonprofit.
So as a person who mainly works on for-profit businesses, I definitely feel like you're going to be able to help educate me as well as our listeners on some of this stuff. Traditionally, when I think of like cash flow, there's, there's 3 different levers that you can kind of pull. You've got your pricing level of things, your sales volume, and then a lot of people just say AR, but I truly believe it's AR and AP both combined together. How different is that when it comes to the nonprofit realm of trying to control your dollars?
Well, pricing does not factor in much in churches and nonprofits. I mean, we certainly have clients where, they have certain things that they price. Sometimes nonprofits will have a little store and sell t-shirts and whatnot. But the pricing piece doesn't really factor in too much in terms of, like I mentioned with AR before, we're only managing that to the extent that we help them budget for or plan for the income that they expect to get based on historical trends of donors or based on the grant applications that a nonprofit might have out in the world at any given time, and kind of guessing or best guessing what grants they believe they'll win, and then planning for that throughout the year or the coming years, because a lot of grants are multi-year grants. So we'll do like long-term budgets for those. I think AP is the biggest place that we can have an impact in helping our clients manage their cash flow by scheduling payments, budgeting for all of the aspects of spending that our clients have across payroll. Most of our clients have a building that they're managing, so we've got utilities and whatnot. And so we do a lot with budgeting and spending controls and scheduling spending to help them.
Does the spending controls and scheduling, the scariest terminology I always think of when it comes to a nonprofit is like restricted funds, and having to be able to kind of track what money is being spent out in regards to certain kind of programs. Is that a difficult thing to track? And if so, like how do you address some of that?
We use QuickBooks Online exclusively with our clients, and we track their restricted funds with projects in QuickBooks. Nice. So we will tag all their income and all their expenses all their restricted income and expenses to a project in QuickBooks. And then we're able to keep track of, how much of that restricted grant they've spent when it's, depleted, the profitability of that project. And we're able to report on that using the tools inside QuickBooks.
So that brings up kind of the idea of obviously using technology to our benefit. We're both cloud, like I like to call myself a cloud-based accountant, right? So it means I can be anywhere and I can do the work, thank goodness, because it's cloud-based. The beauty of it is the opportunity to connect different applications to streamline our workflow. before we talk about some of that, have you had any, everybody loves a good horror story, right? So what's maybe an example of something where somebody's workflow went wrong or something was a challenge that you were able to improve upon?
Gosh. Okay. The horror story first, I guess.
Okay.
We use a system like with all of our clients. We put them on Keeper. We put them on QuickBooks Online, of course, if they're not already on it. Dext and Melio. And I had a client who is no longer a client of mine, thankfully, who refused, hated uploading documents to Dext because it was just time consuming. They didn't feel like doing it. It's not hard, but they didn't want to do it.
Let me guess, they email them to you instead, though. No problem, right?
Oh, not even. Like they didn't even want to be burdened with keeping receipts or anything. It was
okay.
And they also refused to use Melio because they did have cash flow problems and they just really wanted to maintain control. To the point where I do payroll in addition to all the other things for clients. And I would often, on the day that I needed to run payroll, have to text them in the morning to ask them which employees they were going to pay on time because they didn't have enough money to pay everyone on payroll day.
That's pretty brutal. In the comments, people are watching either here or live. Have you ever had a client you've had to deal with where it's like balancing what's going to get paid or not? Put a 1 in the comments for yes or 2 for a no. Love to kind of see what people think on that. So how did you make the decision who's getting paid then?
I made the client decide. I don't decide that kind of stuff. But I think, it created such a burden for them to have to, how do you decide who to pay and who not? I think what they ended up doing was asking the employees, like, who's real desperate for their payroll today? Who needs to pay their rent? I mean, it was bad. It was bad.
I mean, without going too deep into it, can you think of something that caused that scenario as to like, why was there the money issue that caused that?
I think in their case, they were not willing to relinquish control to the bookkeeper that they had hired to help them collect on their receivables. And they were actually a nonprofit who provided a service in the community. So then they charged for that service. And they weren't necessarily willing to charge what the service was worth.
Got it.
Weren't willing to follow up on, the organizations that they were providing the service to actually get the money from them.
I think some bookkeepers are guilty of that too, though, right? But
yes. Sometimes. And also just weren't willing to use the tools that we were trying to provide to them to, manage the outflows of money. They were so timid about their cash flow situation and not willing to receive help that they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Nancy's joining us and watching, and she put a great example about how a client not following your guidance was shooting themselves in the foot.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Right? Nancy and I are close friends, so it's not surprising that we use the same language.
Yeah. We're not saying that we always have the right ideas, but when you work with different companies, regardless of the type or the industry, would you agree there's common challenges that are always faced? They have to make common decisions. They face common challenges that if they ask us about them, we might be able to give them a little bit of insight of what worked or didn't work for others. Still up to them to make the choice though, right?
Absolutely. We can only be, the advisor, and we can give them advice based on our past experience and based on what we know from our colleagues. but they have to make the decisions for themselves. I don't control, they're grown-ups. I'm not the boss of them.
And how long have you been working? You may have said it earlier, apologize for making you repeat yourself. How long have you been working specifically with the nonprofit realm?
Well, my business was started in 2013, but I started doing bookkeeping way back in 2002 when I was a stay-at-home mom, and a friend at church asked me if I would be the treasurer for our church because
Volunteer?
I wasn't doing anything, right?
Okay.
I was just a stay-at-home mom. Shortly, maybe a year or two after it was 3 years after starting to do that, a friend at church who worked at a nonprofit saw that I was pretty good at it and asked if I would look at the books for their nonprofit. And that's the first time I saw QuickBooks Online. In February of 2005, I started doing books for a nonprofit that was using QuickBooks Online.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was an early adopter in like 11 or 12, but
Yeah.
So you've really gone through some of the growing experiences, we'll call it, of the product itself.
Absolutely.
For somebody who's just getting started into bookkeeping, accounting, and they're thinking about going into the nonprofit realm, what tips or advice would you have for them?
Oh gosh. Join a community.
Which you're a part of a really well-known one, right? Bookkeeping Buds?
Yes. And that's I'm a joiner. I am a member of several communities and I love them all. Bookkeeping Buds is one of my favorites, and it's a long-running community. It's women only. Sorry, Matthew.
Okay.
But we're a group of bookkeepers and accountants who share our knowledge, ask questions. We have a monthly or often twice monthly meetings on Zoom, and we have a robust Slack where we ask questions and share tips with each other. It's fantastic. I love it. And I will put links to Bookkeeping Buds in the chat, unless one of my many Bookkeeping Bud friends out there has already done it.
I haven't seen them yet, but I'm sure they would do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely do it too. I prepared for this. Another group that I belong to is run by my good friend Nancy McClelland, and it's called Ask a CPA, and it's fairly new. I think it started about 6 months ago. She is for all genders, so you can join, Matthew. Yay.
Thank you.
And it's meant to like bridge the gap between bookkeepers and tax preparers, to help bookkeepers have a safe place to ask questions about tax and accounting that, in a non-judgmental kind of place.
It's so important. And again, maybe it's a little different just because I haven't done quite as much work with the nonprofits, but with our own clients, we've always tried to do like quarterly tax projection packets and try to engage the tax professional, since I'm not a person who does taxes, and talk about cash flow. Like from my side of it, this is one of the most important parts, is trying to plan out what you're going to be paying out at the end of the year, making sure you're not just going to have this major lump sum payment that you have to do. Try to strategically plan it. So how is that relationship with a CPA different for a nonprofit? And their filing's different time, right? It's year ends usually for nonprofits, June, July.
It depends. I've got nonprofits that end on December 31st, on June 30th, on August 31st. And the 990 form for a nonprofit is filed on the 15th day of the 5th month after fiscal year end. So whenever their fiscal year end is, we have 4.5 months to finish the books, have an audit if our state requires one. In Illinois, where I am, until I think it was January of 2024, but it might have been January of 2025. The threshold for having a nonprofit audit was 300,000 in revenue.
Which seems like
Really
that seems
low.
pretty low, but
Yeah.
I don't know the statistics.
500,000.
Okay.
But which is still pretty low from what I understand, comparatively to other states.
Interesting. Now we've had a couple questions and they're all focused around like cash flow forecasting. And unfortunately, we're not really able to pull up QuickBooks right now and show exactly how to do all of this stuff. But perhaps this would be a great opportunity to join one of those groups and they'd be able to help you there.
Yeah.
But there is a question of, do you suggest a 13-week cash forecast or a timeline less than that? So when you're doing do you do much with like forecasting?
We don't do a ton with forecasting. We really rely on budgeting to take care of our planning. I don't recommend any specific time frame. I tell you to, work with your client to figure out what's best for them and what makes the most sense for them, because everyone's different. Like that client I had who could barely pay payroll every 15 days needed, cash flow forecast practically every day, right?
Yeah.
And, another client that has, a $2 million endowment doesn't need to worry about it nearly as much, right?
Nope. They probably don't.
It really, really depends on the client and your relationship with the client.
I mean, you shared an example of where not having quality cash flow hindered a business. Tell us another story about where improving their processes, how your company does it. What do you do and what has it done to benefit the company?
Well, when we bring on a new client, we introduce them to the Keeper app right away. We have a robust onboarding process there, so they know that that's where they can interact with us. And it has all the information in it that they need to know, like how to use it. As part of our onboarding process, we have instructions for how to use the other tools that we use with them, like Dext and Melio. And it gives them the information that they need to work with us effectively. And then using Melio in combination with Dext, we're able, I feel like Melio probably has the most direct client impact in changing their lives, so to speak.
How so?
Our most recent church that we brought on, and most of the churches that we work with, are doing a very manual process to pay their vendors. They're handwriting or printing checks in the office, and then the treasurer or whoever is the signer on the account has to go to the church or the nonprofit and sign the checks. Sometimes they need 2 people to sign the checks. Because, over a certain amount, they require 2 signers. Then, they leave the checks on the secretary's desk or wherever.
Or in the drawer.
Wherever. Secretary tears the stub off, puts everything in the envelope, slaps a stamp on it, sends it in the mail, and the vendor waits for the mail. That may or may not arrive because it's less and less reliable these days. When we introduce Melio to them, the paper, they're freed from all that paper.
Amen.
Yeah. And they're freed from, driving across town to hand sign a paper check.
Yeah.
We schedule the payment in Melio. They receive an email, day or night whenever we do it. And oftentimes we're working at night because it's quiet then.
Yep.
And they can, click that approve button and the payment goes out.
So I got a question for everybody again, comments wise, both places. When was the last time you had to buy a ream of paper? How about for you, Melissa?
Me, pre-COVID, maybe.
Right? It seems like an interesting question, right? But I want you to think about it, because what we're talking about is like basically digitizing the entire process. And if we're really, as I said, trying to be cloud accountants, when I go and travel and spend time with my family, I can't bring my filing cabinet with me. I can't
Right.
bring different checks and mail them from there necessarily, right? So I think I've had the same pack of paper now for a year and a half, and there's
Yeah.
only one of my clients, Donnie. I'm going to start charging you for the dang paper, Donnie. But that requires it.
You can't see it, but there's a stack of paper here behind me, but
Yeah.
it's all like recycled. It's the backs of things that come to me in the mail.
Okay.
If I receive mail that has a plain back on it, I'll straighten it out and stick it in the pile so that when I need to file something, I'm sorry, when I need to print something,
yes,
I can just print on the back of that, because I'm not printing to send it out somewhere. I'm printing, to refer to it or scribble on it and make notes and stuff.
So you made a mention about one of the things that you have to deal with is within nonprofits quite often, if the spending is too high, there may need to have dual signatures, which means with Milio as part of the process, there is an approval process that's involved. Can you touch base a bit more on what that's like and how that's helped out?
So Milio's approval process?
Yeah.
So the way it works is Milio, God, the word just escaped me. It interacts with QuickBooks. It connects with QuickBooks.
It syncs. Yes.
Syncs. Why? Where did the word go? Anyway, it syncs with QuickBooks. The bill with documentation comes over to Milio. And then, yes, there's an approval process, which can be multi-layered depending on the level of Milio you have. Even the lower level of Milio allows for multiple approvers, but the more robust layered process, I think, is in the more advanced Milio. But I have several clients that have 2 and 3 and 4 approvers listed, and Milio emails everyone and says, this bill needs to be approved. And then they just click a button to go into Milio and see the bill, see the documentation that came with the bill, and decide whether to approve or decline.
Okay. So I'm going to, based off of what you've kind of said, I'm going to break down what I believe your workflow is, and please correct me if I don't get some of this correct. Your primary accounting platform is using QuickBooks Online. Mm-hmm. You're utilizing Dext to get all of your different bills primarily, right? But it's any documentation you're able to scan, upload, and have it pushed in, create the different transactions. So if we're talking about on the accounts payable side of it, it'd be pulled in, the bill's created, the PDF is attached to it. Then because you also have Milio connected, those bills, since they're created as bills, are synced, pulled into Milio right away, showing what needs to be paid. And then you, based on your schedule of payments and understanding of your clients, will basically do a batch of bill payments. You're going to select which ones should be paid.
Yeah.
Check them off, boom, 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 get it ready, saying, hey, person who's needed to approve this, these are the ones we're saying need to be done. I need you to approve, say this is good to go. You probably also tell them, like, make sure there's money there, that kind of thing, but they could look at that. And then from that point, the approval process happens, and that then sets it up to where it could go out. Am I close? Am I getting it?
Yeah. One thing I want to point out with Milio, we can schedule the payments so that they're going out when we want them to.
So you can pre-schedule them ahead of time. So you could basically, that's gorgeous. So you could do a whole bunch of work now and have it set up for periods of time, so you're not beholden to that client every single day.
I can plan a vacation for myself.
Nice. Okay.
And set up all the payments that need to go out during my vacation, and just specifically say what day I want them all to go out. Schedule them today, but tell Milio I want them to go out on all these different days. The notifications go to the client to approve right now. And even if they approve today, it will go out on that scheduled day that I have asked it to.
Okay. Now, one of the biggest challenges when you're dealing with different AP payment programs is trying to get the different people you're trying to pay on board.
Yeah.
How easy has that been for you, or how difficult, or tips?
You know, in Melio, we send an email directly from Melio inviting the vendor to choose from, I think it's 3 options. They can receive a paper check from Melio, but it has Melio's bank information on it, not the client's bank information.
That's
So
huge.
the security
That's
is much
huge.
better in that regard. They can choose to receive an electronic payment, an ACH, or they can choose to receive a virtual payment card, like a one-time use card.
Okay.
They can also choose to pay for faster delivery
Okay.
of their payment. But that's
Because they
entirely
have cash flow problems and maybe need the money.
if that vendor is having cash flow problems, then they can choose to pay to get their payment faster.
Interesting. So in my own realm, again, for the for-profit area, one of the workflows I've been working on and creating is I help a gentleman that has a community that has different tables with different hosts, and we've been able to set up and improve their workflow where the hosts get paid commission. We had to figure out reporting to understand like how many members were in each of these, how much money was supposed to be sent to them every single month, and based on the reports, we can create the bills. And he's been using Melio forever. The bills now get pulled in. It's now super structured to where on the 20th of every month, the payments are going out. And before doing all this stuff and really getting the sync and all the different pieces connected, there were times where figuring out the commissions and getting the payments out were delayed. So again, in my realm, the for-profit, this has been a big game changer on that side of being able to push it out. I was able to do their bill payments for them this week and get all the notifications, do all that kind of stuff. And it just made my life so much easier than trying to print checks and, I
Right.
can't find for that
Absolutely.
person.
Well, and waiting on the mail, I know we've had, clients, we do payroll as well. And we've had
Okay.
clients who say, I never got my W-2, I never got my 1099, that was supposed to come in the mail. So, I mean, that's certainly important for right now filing taxes, but like year round, waiting for a check to come in the mail, especially if you're having cash flow problems, is not something you want to do. And it's not something our clients want to worry about when they're paying people, because it's for those that are having cash flow problems, it's hard to manage. Okay, the check went out, so I need to make sure I have that money in my bank account still because it's going to clear at some point. And, what exactly is my cash position?
Yeah, that's a great point. We got another phenomenal nonprofit person, Megan, that's watching. She's saying hello to you and I both. So,
Oh, hi, Megan.
good to
Yeah,
see
you know what? Backing way up. That's another
Mhm.
community that I just recently joined. Megan just started a community for nonprofit people. It's called
Yes.
the Nonprofit Crew. And Megan, please share the link to it in the chat, if you will, because I love her QuickBooks for Nonprofits on Facebook, and this paid community is going to be phenomenal. I'm really excited about it.
So who else, like when you go and you're looking to learn from other people, I think you just kind of mentioned one of them. Who do you learn from, or where do you go to learn answers to difficult challenges within your career?
Well, Megan, for sure. I have called her the nonprofit guru for years. I'm glad to be a friend of hers now. I am a conference junkie.
Okay.
So I love going to conferences and, seeing old friends and meeting new ones like you.
Yep.
And learning how I can, better serve my clients and better manage my practice from that. I also belong to, like I said, several communities where I learned from my peers. follow lots of Facebook communities like the QuickBooks for Nonprofits. And I actually run a Facebook community called QBO Q&A, where accounting professionals and business owners who use QuickBooks can, collaborate and get questions answered and learn from each other. All over the place. I'm constantly learning.
Yeah, it's the best part. Honestly, I've always said my favorite thing about being a business owner is the exponential learning curve. There's always something else I can learn about. And I'm sure this resonates with you as well, as every new client gives you some new opportunity to, it's like our own episode of how things work, right? You get to see behind the scenes of what it actually takes to create and do something.
Yeah, that's true. And it's surprising, or I guess it shouldn't be, but it's a little bit surprising how often our clients need operations expertise, even though that's not technically the business we're in. We do provide that additional, service. They want to understand how to run their business, not just from a financial point of view, but also, HR and, legal stuff. They ask us all kinds of questions. So we need to be connected to people in the community who know that stuff, so we can refer our clients, or refer ourselves to read and learn about those things, so we know where to point our clients in the right direction.
Yeah, I found, especially due to the pandemic, which, can you believe it's been 5 years now since all of that? It was the first time I ever took the time to really jump in and read legislation and trying to understand what was involved. Because if we're talking about cash flow, talk about a period of time in which cash flow was so important in trying to help these different business owners survive. They relied on us for so much information because they didn't think of all the different business owners that would have to dive in, try to learn all this stuff all the time. But the whole point of what we do is it's relationship based. So if we can spend that a little bit of energy to try to learn this, and if nothing else, help provide them good starter questions to get to their true tax professional. Again, I don't do taxes, why I say it that way. Perhaps it can help them expand and move on and make it through and weather the storm in a sense. So
absolutely. And, like you said, get to the heart of their question, right? And help them understand what they really need to know, so that when we say, go, ask your tax professional, or your, in my world, auditor, about that, we can kind of give them a script for what to ask based on the knowledge we have of their business and our day-to-day interaction with them.
What interesting question I'm just interested in is, what would you say are some of the common questions that auditors are going to ask, or tips that you would have for nonprofits that auditors look into? Is like, they're going to look at this, so you better make sure this is, legit here. Any common threads that you've seen across different companies and such?
My nonprofit audits have been pretty straightforward. They ask kind of the same questions, right? They want to know if you have documentation of your expenses.
Okay.
They want to know that the W-3 ties out to the W-2s. They want to know, this is big in nonprofit, they want to know who your top donors are. They want a list of names, donors above 5,000 for the year. Those are the big ones. They want to make sure that, you've properly tracked your restricted donations, of course, all the restricted funds, ins and outs. Those are the big ones.
So, I mean, again, with the workflow that you've established using Dex and Milio, these are environments where you're getting that supporting data that's connecting right away. I'll tell on myself here. We have a lot of Canadian friends, and with their accounting, they have to have a supporting receipt and document for
Yeah.
everything, right? Like,
Right.
it's really how we should always be doing it down here. So I have so much respect from that side, because if you're just doing bank feed bookkeeping and you don't have that supporting data, probably could change things. I assume with nonprofits, it's very much like our friends in Canada. You better have every supporting piece of data, especially restricted funds, anything of that nature,
Yeah.
right? It's more stringent, I assume?
Absolutely. They want documentation of everything. And so I require as much as I can, of course, because again, I'm not the boss of them.
Yeah.
I'm not their mom. I require them to provide documentation for nearly everything. Even, the $5 cup of coffee that the pastor bought to, have a meeting with a parishioner about something.
Okay. And so with restricted funds, again, it's an area where it's always kind of like somebody calls me and asks me about some of this stuff. I always get scared a bit. Any tips or tricks of how, I know you're already using QuickBooks Online with projects, but from my understanding, it could actually, it involves payroll as well, like making sure only a certain amount of hours are going towards it. What are some of the pitfalls that people may run into as well around dealing with restricted funds that they should be aware of?
Gosh, where to start? We use QuickBooks Online Payroll. And
Okay.
so when we're payroll specifically, we are allocating payroll to the different projects.
So tracking the time using QuickBooks Time and
yeah. Well,
perfect.
Not always.
Okay.
Sometimes if we aren't using QuickBooks Time, we will ask the client to, we get an agreement with the client. We make an agreement with the client based on conversations. Some clients, like we have a nonprofit theater group. We allocate their payroll to the different shows that they do based on how long the show runs.
Oh, okay.
So if they do a show for 6 weeks, that 6 weeks of payroll will be, allocated to that show. If they're running shows simultaneously, we determine like a percentage of the month that show is allocated to versus the other show. And we'll allocate payroll and other overhead costs to the different shows based on the percentage. Then we do have other clients that, keep track of time. All their employees track how much time they spend working on each project. And then we, again, calculate a percentage based on the time to allocate the payroll, the overhead, all those things to the different projects.
When you're creating budgets for these nonprofits, like how much time does it take to create and do this? I mean, I know technology's gotten a little bit better, but reviewing the different line items, everything else, it took us months to go back and forth, at least for our company. How long does it take you to get through creating budgets for the next year?
Most of our clients spend 3 or 4 months planning their budgets for the upcoming year. And we spend a couple hours each month kind of helping them honing those budgets. We rely a lot on meetings and interactions with our clients to determine, exactly how their budgets will go for the year. It's a very collaborative process.
Okay. So what happens when you get the person that, somebody leaves the position, the lead role, and somebody else comes back in? How do you get them up to speed quickly? And how do you win them over immediately? So, because everybody has their best person they want to introduce, and I'm going to bring this person with me and blah, 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 right? So how do you win them over and get them up to speed fast?
Well, we keep documentation of almost everything.
That's a good
one. So
one.
that we can, share, here's how we did it before. Here's what's worked for this organization. If you're coming in with a lot of new ideas and, want to tear it all down and rebuild, here's how you can work with us. That's going to be out of scope, first of all.
Good.
And here's how you can work with us to, combine the best of, what this organization has done in the past with your new knowledge. And, it's a real collaborative process. I think I've said before, but, it really is. Like we work with our clients to sort of customize what we do for them to meet their needs as best we can within reason, within the framework of the tools that we use.
Good. And as a quick reminder, you've specifically chosen a tech stack: QuickBooks Online, Dext, Milio, for payroll, QuickBooks Online, payroll, QuickBooks Time. Any other pieces that are big parts of your full tech stack? Like, are you a Teams person, a Slack person?
We use the Google Suite. The
Googles, okay.
But I don't like Google Sheets and Google Docs, so I use Microsoft Excel and Word. Like I'm a split personality, I guess. I also use Google Suite, but I don't love Google Meet. I use Zoom.
Yes.
So I use all kinds of stuff. The one piece that I mentioned before that you missed in your list was Keeper.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
We use Keeper for a robust task list. Keeper is the boss of me. It tells me what to do every day because we've built all of our processes into there and schedule everything so that we know what we need to get done.
And are you signing tasks to clients through that as well, so they know that they've got to be checking stuff there, or is it like sending notifications?
We send questions, specific, mostly transaction questions. If they haven't given us the documentation, or if they did give us the documentation, but it's just a receipt and they didn't tell us anything about why they went to, XYZ store and bought this thing, then we'll name it an uncategorized transaction and send it back to them in Keeper. Say, okay, why did you do this? Make this expenditure? Why did you go to this store? Like, what was it for? Was it for a particular project? Was it for a restricted grant? Like, you have to give us information. We're not mind readers.
No, we're not. So you've mentioned that obviously you've been doing this for quite some time. Maybe difficult to kind of answer this, but looking back to when you first started doing a lot of this stuff, you said you started using QBO in 2005, but utilizing technology, using the tech stack that you've done, what percentage of improvement in your efficiency, or how much time have you been able to claw back per client by figuring these things out and standardizing and making people use the best softwares?
Oh gosh. If I had known you were going to ask me that, I would have put together some big spreadsheet and figured it out.
Which would an Excel spreadsheet, by the way, just in case you guys didn't catch it.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I would have totally geeked out on it and figured it out to the minute.
Minimum. So maybe your ability to take on more clients has increased, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I hired an employee in December of 2023. She's full time with me, and we both have, plenty of work to do. And we've added, I don't even know how many clients, since she started. So just that alone, I've been able to grow my business by using technology efficiently and effectively. It's allowed us to scale for sure.
That's huge.
And the technology, I wanted to be a, fully remote firm, and the technology has allowed me to do that.
Amen.
I used to have to go and print those checks for the clients so they could sign them in the office.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to spend, I live in Chicago, and it's, I say it takes a half an hour to go anywhere. I don't have to spend an hour in the car, half an hour there and half an hour back just to pick up documents or print checks or whatnot.
And depending on the time of year, like you guys get it too cold out there to where I'd be like, I'm not getting in the car. So I don't know, but
yeah, you're in what, sunny California, right?
yeah, it's right on the beach. It's a horrible life.
Sounds bad.
Exactly. So I always like to ask this question because when you start doing different online events and you become known for doing certain aspects, maybe you specialize in a trade, everybody will send you different leads. But what is a truly qualified lead for you? Like if you could define a perfect future client that you would love other people to think about you if they come across it, what would that look like?
Churches who are affirming of LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC rights.
Beautiful.
Very, very specific.
Okay. That's why I like to ask, right? I've learned over time, if you can truly chase the type of clients you want to work with, that's the only way we get closer to the idea of you'll never work a day in your life, is if you truly love and are passionate about what you're doing. So, for those watching now or later, keep that in mind, please. And, as we get ready to kind of close this down here, would you remind everybody what's the best places to connect with you? And if they've got follow-up questions, such as asking about some of the forecasting and such.
Gosh, well, I have a Facebook group called QBO Q&A. You can find me on Facebook at Bookkeeping for Good or Melissa Miller Ferguson. I'm on LinkedIn with my name. I'm on all kinds of social media, honestly, and you can find me any of those places. You can see me at Scaling New Heights in June.
Congratulations.
Because awesome. I'm a conference junkie. I'm going to see you, right, Matt?
Undecided yet. So
okay.
My traveling this year has actually been more focused on the life part of life work harmony. So maybe, but I'm sure we'll cross each other very, very soon. It's the in real life people things that they're the most important. So connect with the people around you any chance you get.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And for those looking to connect with me, I also have a Facebook group. It's called QB Community Live. You're welcome to check it out. My social media tags is Spoticus. That's SPOTYCUS on just about everything. So if I can ever be of assistance, happy to do so. But any kind of final words as we close out for the day, Melissa?
Gosh, I feel like I've talked so much. I'm not sure I have anything left to say. Just follow. I don't know. This sounds cheesy, but like follow your passion and, do what inspires you within this community. Cause I am, and I'm, living my best life, as they say, living the dream, as my husband would say.
I love it. Community is powerful. Lean into them. If you, through the good times, and especially if you have difficult times, lean into your community. They'll be there for you. So
absolutely.
On that note, here's wishing everybody a very successful week. Thanks for joining us today.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.